Please stay. Don't put out the flame and run away. In this heartbreak, I'll be here fighting for you with or without you. Every day, I'm getting stronger, but I still feel the pain. Time will show the way, and I'm in the heart you've broken with or without you. Baby, till you come back with something. Come back with something. I know I'll never let it go. I know I'll never let go. Difference that you come back with nothing. You come back with nothing. This obsession is turned into the great despair. I keep thinking I see you, but there's nobody there. You say
Hey, I love it.
your love isn't fair, so pull me out of the great despair. Oh, we watch the world burn down around us, but we're still standing here with the flicker of hope on the darkest of days. Now it feels like the end is near. The This obsession is turned into the great despair. I keep thinking I see you. This obsession is turned into the great despair. All I see is you, everywhere. Facing lonely inside, and now it's time we declare goodbye to the great despair. Goodbye to the great despair. Goodbye to the great despair.
Hey all, Siege here, and welcome to 1999. This quest is easily the most intriguing and potentially confusing campaign we've received. That's also made it my personal favorite. Not just for the story, mind you, but the gameplay, much slower and reserved, if you will. Very much resembling, interestingly enough, a kind of refined Dark Sector. Something that Digital Extremes offered for free prior to the launch of the quest during the apex of an ARG players were engaged with. One that provided quite a lot of interesting information about this new variation of the past, per se. For those unaware who have perhaps taken a break from the story, Warframe 1999 heavily features an augmented version of the year 1999, where we are seemingly following the recently rediscovered Albrecht Entrati, who was revealed to be essentially the founder of the Void, as well as its associated technology, at least in what we understand its current capacity to be. He's quite the enigmatic source of information, and very much at times appears unreliable, at the very least, a theme that has followed the character since his inception. And this theme, one that has permeated almost every aspect of Warframe since, in ways reaches, in my opinion at least, its zenith within something that, unfortunately, much of the Warframe community will undoubtedly miss. What's worse, with the limited time it's available, much of this really important aspect to Warframe in general will largely fade into memory for the vast majority of us, if we were even privileged enough to know it existed or see it happen in the first place. So, in discussing the events of Warframe 1999, we will also delve into the relevant aspects of this ARG, as, in my opinion, it was one of the most unique and potentially revealing experiences within this new update. Now, the Plague Year is either 1999 specifically, or perhaps a short time before, as things still seem pretty functional aside from the quarantined aspect of Höllvania itself, with Plague Year explaining a lack of citizenry when patrolling its streets, something briefly mentioned in previous lore but was never really expounded upon with specifics. Given its naming convention, the infested mire sword, and plague iterations of all items having an infested association, it's fairly safe to assume that at some point before 1999, technocyte was created. A multifunctional virus-like organism that can assimilate and recondition both organic and inorganic material into, in theory at least, specified usable forms. But what actually occurs is of course up to the mind that controls it, which at least in the origin system has seen many different variants, all of which having fairly sinister goals when not desiring pure integrational hunger, its basal behavior. Aside from Helminth, of course, but even it's mostly Orokin controlled and, if nothing else, Orokin created, and still refers to the Tenno as demon, so take that for what you will. Confusingly, its introduction here would oddly line up more with Dark Sector's timeline than Warframe's, with the Orokin themselves not appearing to exist in 1999, yet at the same time, from what we knew at least, were said to be the progenitors of Technocyte in the Tenno's own origin system, with most believing the infestation's inception to have been a product of the coming sentient war, as well as for repurposing wholly stripped planets within the solar system, Earth included, utilizing the Technocyte to allow uninhabitable lands to be repurposed and repopulated, saving the Orokin Empire in theory. That plan, however, does not seem to be the same one as Albrecht's.
I went among the denizens of the plague year like a savior, my hands filled with healing. To those who volunteered, I brought more than mere health. Their bodies were primed. It needed only the Helminth infusions brought from my own time to work the out of transformation. They have become partial Warframes, still in possession of their free will, yet enhanced, void-attuned, capable. Their humanity may not last. My deliverance may yet consume them, the human swallowed up in the sacred beast. And if my wayward disciples turn on me, what words of comfort shall I have beyond? This is the bargain we have made. Through our sacrifice, history will be saved. As their loyal doctor, I have taken repeated samples from them. The sight of their technocyte-riddled cells mutating gave me fresh visions. I could take this material, work with it, forge new creations. Eagerly, I brought the samples back to Deimos and began to cultivate them. It was Lloyd who pointed out the singular attributes of the gray strain, how it stimulates growth to monstrous dimensions. Many thoughts converged in me then. What if, through precise biochemical engineering, I could create the equivalence of Warframes, yet built to a titanic scale? Surely such a legion could stand against the adversary, assuming, of course, that an operator could be found. Not long after, the first of my vessels took form. A giant to battle giants, merging the humanity of the man Arthur, the anatomical perfection of Ballas's Warframes, and the titanic potency of the gray strain. My saviors.
Yes, the one we've been chasing has apparently been found in 1999, and with an odd association with a group of proto-frames, individuals with powers like the Warframes, but with the benefit of keeping their mind free from the infestation, at least for the time being, of course. This group, a motley crew of highly trained individuals in a number of relevant fields, have seemingly followed their de facto leader Arthur to Höllvania, where the techrot, as it's called here, is assumed to be most prevalent. We pick up the story from just before this moment.
Hold up! Hero boy. You're going after Dr. E all by yourself.
Or maybe you're gonna bail on us, Arthur. Forget it.
We're in this mess because of you.
I'm coming too!
Guys? Am I sensing some tension here? No one's bailing. I got us into this, and if it kills me, I'll get us. Fine. Aoi, Amir, Quincy on backup. Letty, you and Eleanor hold the fort here. Keep the Jennies running.
And this scene is strangely different from what we were shown in an earlier trailer.
Self.
Yeah. You're not going without backup, Arthur. Forget it.
Yeah, I bet you didn't even pack a med kit.
I'm coming too. Guys, it won't be like last time, I promise.
At least dialogue-wise. Nonetheless, Arthur makes his way to the address his possessed hand so furiously typed out. Now, the hand could in fact belong to the Drifter, having already made a connection during an earlier update. This potentially being the coordinate point Lloyd himself had described when attempting to triangulate a route after our interactions during Whispers in the Walls, as well as the Lotus Eaters. And while doing so, we meet Major Nisi Rizalka. Major Rizalka's dialogue too has been changed, almost like all this has happened before, but this time, Major Rizalka lets the proverbial mask slip with an all too familiar name, giving us an idea of who we're actually dealing with. Now, after fending off the tank with aggressive negotiations, both Entrati and Kalimos appear, beckoning Arthur deeper into the techrot, pitting him against literal living screens, organic and not coalesced into a hideous form, perhaps even more so disgusting than its original system counterpart in the vague familiarity of what we're seeing, twisted and corrupted. This, against the backdrop of the 90s style mall experience, makes for a most unsettling landscape. Arthur is greeted by a hideous yet, again, familiar maw that regurgitates what in all rights appears to be a basic Excalibur frame, and after squaring off and meeting in almost perfect synchronization, the truth of the matter is revealed. This was the inn the Tenno needed to make it from the origin system to this dimension, with the Drifter needing to be the one to come through, per what was established in Lotus Eaters. The Tenno, now being used to the term devil and all its associations, is able to transfer briefly into Arthur's subconscious and, at least in part, show the plight of the universe as a whole. Not liking that much, he offers his own gift to our Drifter in return, and the scene shifts to what appears to be a very much alive and very mortal, with the look of his injuries, Albrecht Entrati, as well as his other. The indifference, shown in a multitude of forms and faces, has assumed the position of Rizalka as previously hinted at. Perhaps one of the most profound passages I can remember, confirms a few pretty mind-blowing things, but something in particular, something we've been speculating at for quite some time. The indifference can not only take the form of those it's interacted with, it can control them, or if dialogue shown in chats with Eleanor or anything to go off of, take them over completely. Uncomfortably similar even to what the Tenno do with Warframes, if you really think about it. But more importantly, something the Tenno themselves have experienced firsthand. I believe there's a lot more this specific passage insinuates, but for now, the indifference has its prey. Something it's seemingly longed to see to fruition, and it almost can't believe the moment has arrived. Further, it appears to be acting out a potential reunion between master and servant, switching forms between Entrati and Lloyd, and it does seem as though something uncomfortable occurs, tipping the real Albrecht off to what he deems the fulcrum of the indifference's schemes, that being love. The scene then cuts back to an overly excited Amir, the Volt proto-frame, making a wonderful Back to the Future reference, and making the movie canon in the Warframe universe at the same time. The rest of the Hex are a bit more inquisitive, though, as to what's actually going on. Essentially, the town of Höllvania is set for a nuclear blast within its confines, and the moment hinted at in Whispers in the Walls will essentially bring with it a nuke. After a brief interlude with Quincy, the Cyto 9 frame, to gear up, and Aoi, Mag's proto-frame, to claim our first Automa cycle, we begin the process of trying to locate Albrecht, prevent a nuclear holocaust, and gain the trust of the other members. The idea of the Y2K bug is thrown around in the literal sense. Another interesting reference to a very real fear at the time, with limitations regarding date structures and computers supposedly threatening technological chaos, and in many ways the plot here offering a very similar outcome. After reaching the area Entrati is believed to be held from before and finally expecting to get some real answers, we are instead met with the Other. Only briefly, and with forces alerted to the Hex's plan. A frantic escape is enacted, and they regroup at Höllvania Mall to reassess their situation, with the group seriously questioning who they can trust, as well as bringing up some rather unsavory yet potential necessary solutions to the plight in the lead-up. These proto-Avengers, if you will, reside within the Mall of Solitude and Justice, in their first ever team meeting no less. They just don't know it yet. Eleanor spills the news that the Void entity may be the one keeping us here, trapped at least for the time being, and in the process offer a front row seat to full-on nuclear winter, should we survive the blast, of course. But knowing also presents the opportunity to keep it from happening, and that is exactly what the group sets out to achieve. At the same time, the techrot appears to be reacting to everything that's going on, and while Amir is trying to hack into their system, we are forced to keep the air as clean as possible. This hack brings with it quite the familiar tune, and although it's definitely a favorite of mine, the aforementioned ARG and other supporting information lets us understand the capabilities of this strain,
Isn't it great? Amir got me from the hack.
pointing out its ability to infect through unorthodox means. So while the music is great, it's important to consider that this song may be hastening the infection within the Hex without them even knowing. That being said, the group is able to shut it off quick and reveal something far more interesting. Kalimos has arrived at the mall and directs us to a new room, one seemingly perfectly tailored for the coming fight ahead. Another living option moving forward, but for the purposes of this story, allows our tenno access to the entirety of his or her arsenal, as well as a new message from our enigmatic savior.
Tenno, if you are seeing this, your loop has been altered.
No kidding.
You and I are trapped here. Soon, the murmur will crawl through the cracks and devour this world and its possibilities. Our only means of escape, our only hope to contain this horror I have created, will require a spark of energy rare in this timeline. You know what this means. Do not allow Arthur and the Hex to stop this. I realize what I am asking, but you of all people understand what is at stake. For the sake of everything before and to come. At midnight tonight, the bomb must go off.
Not only is Entrati asking us to condemn our new friends to the fate he's chosen, but he's also implying that we keep this secret from them as well, needing quite a few gigawatts, or as he called it, a spark from the annihilation of Höllvania, and by extension the Hex, as well as whatever citizenry still live within range. The Hex have news of their own once we emerge from our new digs. They believe they've found the real Entrati, himself a high-value prisoner they think is being moved through armored convoy. Our tenno seems unsure of what to do, trying to downplay the possibility of the Doctor within this particular unit, but we pursue nonetheless, and after fighting through an army of Skaldra, the governing force controlling the quarantine in Höllvania, a faction of combatants looking very similar to Grineer, Major Ruzalka then appears as well. She does make an interesting observation. One the tenno shakes off in the moment, needing to deal with violence before talking, and it's not a problem for our fully armed and filthy tenno. It all culminates, however, in an extremely odd scene.
Who are you?
Kill her. Now.
You do it. I'm not your puppet.
If you cannot sacrifice even this much, how will you do what comes next?
What's he talking about, Marty? Maybe I won't.
Are you more a child than your mother? Do you think I am not haunted by these choices?
Marty's legit?
The indifference appears to be injured, with Entrati certain that by killing it, we will somehow be preventing its influence further, remarking that this is the breach, presumably meaning the gap in continuity or the break in the timeline we appear to be in. He insinuates this has obviously happened before, that the cycles going through this again and again is affecting the void in a negative manner. The Drifter, not holding much allegiance to Entrati, is reluctant to do this, questioning the necessity of all of it and why he or she has to be the one to do it. Albrecht, like always, attempts to justify his own horrific behavior with his greater good, insinuating the Tenno is acting immature. But at that same moment, the indifference appears to get its power back, transforming and disappearing again. By all rights, taking Entrati with him in the process. The Hex reconvene in the back room, as it's infamously called. You can probably guess the insinuation there, and it's here where the team begins to splinter.
Nice score you got us here, Arthur. You know what? I've had my fill of the circus. I'm out.
Quincy! Come on, man. Maybe we don't need Marty to stop this. Don't...
North's your best bet. Mountains might be a chance against the fallout.
Cheers. Look.
Anyone else? No.
I'll still follow you, brave king. But this half-assed plan's gone full guano. Amir's Y2K thing won't even work.
Yeah. I should have said. Controllers... air-gapped. Good policy, actually.
Air-gapped.
Off-net. We'd have to full-on the reactor and patch it direct. Only about 4,000 Skuldra to the 6 of us. Bad odds, we.
5 of us. Arthur. Maybe it is time to bail.
There's an army beneath our feet, you all know it. My loving brother just needs to ask. I know he's itching to.
Eleanor? Arthur? Don't you dare. She's barely hanging on as it is.
You said it yourself, Letty. Bad odds. Eleanor. I'm asking. Please.
Please. Grand news, indeed.
With Quincy leaving, Arthur asking Eleanor to confront the techrot in a bid to fully control it, and Letty clearly being against that. But, with dwindling options, what's left of the team set out to try to defy fate. We are shown that the techrot has united around a particular mind that seems to be forming its own considerations for the coming threat, and it's one that Eleanor can, in fact, plans on exploiting. Now, Eleanor is different from the other Hex in that she was much closer to being fully consumed by the techrot than the rest of them, a fate she seemed to have brought on herself as a former journalist. She is actually responsible for the name, with most people now just referring to it as techrot instead of its true name, technocyte, or even the term that had been originally developed for it, testudo syndrome. However, within a Warframe 1999 comic, we do learn it was Albrecht who infected the Hex. Their path to being proto-frames began in an attempt to abduct him for the sole purpose of reversing whatever they'd already been exposed to. Unfortunately, not only was Entrati ready for this, we find he expected it, inflicting Arthur specifically with a mortal wound and leaving the group exposed to an overwhelming cadre of Skaldra soldiers. We also learn Entrati and Rusalka were in league together, both of which attempting to bring his overall plan into fruition, with the assault here making all the more sense. What's worse, it's the Hex who have to inject themselves with a mysterious serum, or that they will in fact all die. This is most likely Ballas's Helminth formula, and essentially forcing them to die in order to entertain the prospect of living at the same time. Left with no choice, they use it, and the proto-frames were born. This is, however, also the reason the Hex seem to place blame on Arthur. They believe he got them into this, and now, as shown, they just want to get home to their families. Well, at least they did. We pick back up with Eleanor in her attempt to commune and control the techrot, only succeeding appears to bring about a change she may not have anticipated. And we are brought aboard the Zeramin, this occurring directly after the Indifferents made off with Entrati, meaning it took us as well in the confusion. The Tenno seems to think Albrecht is doing all of this, but the truth is soon revealed. It's not him, but the other. And we are shown the future.
Eleanor is the first to die. Eleanor! Then Letty.
See you soon, Mama.
I've seen enough, Albrecht!
Not that old dog. This is me. I can't. These gifts you have, a piece of me, given freely. But those before you were butchers, flayed flesh for stolen stars.
I was too slow.
Before you, they did not ask. They butchered me, my flesh fed their greed. Come back for us, back.
Now, none of this is going well for the Hex, but also the indifference seems to be leveling with us in a way, explaining that, presumably the Orokin, just took what they wanted from the Void, never asking, just taking and using it for their own nefarious purposes. And the Tenno is no stranger to their behavior, having been involved in their downfall on numerous occasions at this point. And I believe it is trying to reach us, and perhaps even deserves sympathy. But consider what that cost may be. Nonetheless, after taking on the darkness of each of the Hex's future downfall, Albrecht seems to appear, shooting us and snapping us back to the mission at hand. And the end begins with a message from the online boys, serenading us into the new year.
We can't hear you!
Yo, sounds like someone's trying to kick off the party without us.
No way, man! Ain't no party till I show up. Blood show how it's really done. Höllvania! Never been in love? And who's at their heart broken? We feel you, but trust me, stay strong. Time heals everything. And I know you know it, right? Love is time. Every day, I'm getting stronger, but I still feel the pain. Time will show the way.
Each group finds its way in, but we are shown the troubled pair of Letty and Eleanor first, with Letty just trying to make sure Eleanor can keep her mind after having taken on the techrot as a kind of surrogate mother, even having reverence for it as if it were her own children, and seeming to like this just a bit too much. And then a familiar scene with us already knowing what happens in the aftermath. Quincy may have actually been safe, had he actually left, of course. But in staying to cover Arthur and Amir, unfortunately, this will be the last thing he does. Which then brings us to the reactor itself, Amir, Aoi, and Arthur. Amir, being the tech wizard he is, with much quicker thinking than most of us, as anyone who's chatted with him for any amount of time will undoubtedly know, begins his attempt to shut it down, with Aoi trying to hold everything in place until he can finish. Arthur, seeing a particularly hostile-looking creature on the reactor itself, decides to essentially give his life by going in and attempting to stop it. The amount of radiation seeming to be even too great for a Warframe. Aoi, not being fully adapted to her powers, underestimates the strain it will put upon her and falls. Arthur's attempt at destroying the creature is successful, even amidst the murmur grasping fiendishly for him, appearing to somewhat go against the indifference's desire to counter Entrati's plan, but regardless, the radiation was just too great. And for as fast as Amir is, this time, he was too slow. Albrecht shows up, seemingly to be at the precipice of at least a portion of the plan he has enacted to neutralize the Void, the spark he needed within reach, and his plan revealed to head to Tau, the same place Ballas was headed. And after having murdered Amir, he pleads with the Tenno to just be indifferent here, see the bigger picture, realize the tough part's done, that all of them are already dead, and make that sacrifice count, a theme, well, he's been preaching for quite some time now. But the Tenno has his own familiar saying he reverts to. And then Entrati does a very odd thing. He appears to surrender another option, but only by getting to know them, and kills our character just as he did Amir. Now, most likely understanding what Entrati mentioned earlier, the Drifter, with his time in Duviri being so extensive, is no stranger to death and cycles, and thus decides against it, beginning again, which leads the group back to roughly a year prior to the Cataclysm, and a group of individual proto-frames all vaguely aware of what occurred.
What occurred in that reactor, or what's going to occur, is beyond me. But it looks like we have another chance. And with you steering that ship, we might even make it. If anyone can pull this team together, it's you. And if there's anything I can do, you know where I am.
With you? Well, you are to make this group something more. And while they aren't the 27 Yankees and aren't yet a team, it's up to you to beat them into shape, so to speak, and find another way. Something that can only be achieved by chatting with each of them, fighting beside them, and genuinely attempting to forge bonds with the entirety of the group. By doing so, we learn so much that it needs its own video, but most importantly, it offers us the chance to, as our other Induviri so eloquently puts it, begin again.
Eleanor is the first to die.
She's in the back.
Eleanor!
She's just in the back collecting it.
Making sure that you are still you.
Of course we are. You can be too.
Eleanor, only here to help. It's up to you.
I'm here.
Not today, Mama. Area secure. Godspeed, Amir.
Did you forget? Albrecht's going to burn them all anyway.
You can. You're strong enough.
We're not gonna make it, man! I can't even compile in time.
Then we go down swimming.
Not now. Not now.
Amir, slow it down.
I don't have time.
out your hand.
Just go. Done. Entrati.
Failed.
Sorry about your hand. You wait. No.
Hey, let's get out of here, Arthur. Both of us. Okay?
Okay.
Your heart would struggle to lose them. It had to grow. The only way it ever does. With others. Carry this power with mercy, Tenno.
And by doing so, apparently against the wishes of the indifferents, we are able to use our light and cleanse them of this darkness they seem to be trapped under. And I believe in some subconscious way, heal each of the Hex's darkest fears. By just being there with them through it. A point that's made early in our discussions, them all being loners until we come along. By transferring into each of them at the proper moment, now fully trusted as a member of their family, our tenno gives them the latent power they need to overcome themselves, their darker side, doubt, fear, insecurity. They had to let it all go, essentially freeing their minds and showing them what they are truly capable of. Eleanor takes control of herself and is now confident in who she is again, with the process proving to Letty that her old friend had in fact returned. Aoi's insecurity and Amir's panic attack are both calmed by the light of friendship and love, some of, if not the purest emotion a human can experience. Dare I say, Amir is shown being given that deep, comforting breath here that anyone that's had an anxiety attack understands what it's like finally getting to breathe once it finally ends. And Arthur can ultimately let his guard down, perhaps for the first time in soul knows how long, and be himself saved by an actual friend. Entrati then goes on to tell us that
Your heart would struggle to lose them. It had to grow. The only way it ever does. With others. Carry this power with mercy, Tenno.
And it's true. Now a team, the Hex with the tenno at their back, can drudge forward towards the new year. Again. But then, what's next? This will undoubtedly be considered over the course of calendar year 1999, but what exactly happened during the quest? Well, I believe on the surface at least, Entrati has been found. He believes this area in particular must be eradicated from the planet, offering him the spark that he needs, supposedly to reach that pie in the sky Orokin dream, heading to Tau. The original plan from all those years ago, a plan that Ballast 2 was enamored in, not to mention other members of the Seven, essentially leaving the Origin system to its own devices now, and from what I can gather, the full will of the Indifferents. This power is again very in line with Ballast's plan to utilize the sun to make his jump. Let it never be said that repeating patterns, cycles if you will, aren't a significant theme in Warframe. Truthfully, it's one of the easiest ways to discern a character's actual intentions. Which is interesting because Entrati, for the sheer number of times that he's chosen indifference in his own right, with countless bodies offered to the Void as experimental fodder, the Cavia, his treatment of Lloyd in person, only showing supposed remorse after leaving for 1999, chalking even that action up to his greater good. Now, believes love to be the key, the counter to the Void's plan, and realizing that the Tenno are actually starting to buy into this with the Hex, like a cosmic mentor of sorts, offers the smallest of hints that only by connecting to them, knowing them outside and in, quite literally, can we stop what's about to occur, something he very gently reminds at the end. That this can only be achieved through the power of others, and we are showered with positive reinforcement by the group. And the sequence completes. Not to leave out Lloyd, as he's still wondering what happened, we give him the all good from the only way we really can, using the vessels to relay the message, potentially even possible now with all the vessels in the lab, due to both our connection to each of the Hex and those same Titanic Warframes being born of the Hex members themselves. We won. In a seemingly impossible scenario, and presumably can walk into New Year's Eve with our best girl or guy, stop the impending doom of both Entrati's decimation of Höllvania, as well as the Indifference's desire to overtake it, possibly even through the use of the techrot. And in the end, all's well that ends well, yes? This is one interpretation of the story for certain, and at a base level encapsulates the events of what we know of Warframe 1999, at least at the moment. As mentioned earlier, each of the Hex provides some pretty telling lore through both their perspective as well as the Drifters, and some rather shocking information is seemingly revealed, of which I plan to do a full video on in the future. Now, the whereabouts of Entrati are to this point unknown, but the end does suggest he was able to get away from the Indifference, even potentially interfering with what was supposed to emotionally manipulate the Drifter into likely doing what the Void wanted in our trip back to the Zariman 10-0. An overly emotional area for that variation of the Tenno to begin with, in what they had to endure without the Indifference's help the first time, showing he still has some will over the being and can make change yet, and that we still may have a chance. And perhaps even more importantly, seeming to show that Entrati does in fact have a heart still. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this retelling of the Hex Quest. And if you are in fact happy with that explanation, I thank you for enjoying the video and wish you a good day. But I'm guessing some of you aren't necessarily content with what I presented. You feel something was off about the quest. You may not even know what it is, but you feel it, like a splinter in your mind. And in that, I want to offer you a choice. Let's call what you just heard the blue pill ending, because I'm guessing some of you may have noticed the radio within the Höllvania Mall sitting just outside Eleanor's room, periodically repeating, and wondered, how exactly did that get there? Or perhaps you noticed the fourth wall-breaking aspect of the Eye of Entrati, let's call it. This same one, those of you who did participate in the aforementioned ARG, will know does seem to have a legitimate, let's say, source behind it. One that might not be of just Entrati, and for the particularly eagle-eyed. You may have asked yourself how a person who continually attempts to act and even influence others in such a cold and emotionless manner might somehow now have found such value in so powerful an emotion as love, especially given his scientific reputation and work and teaching specifically in regards to dealing with the Void. And for those people, this surface-level explanation of the quest just won't be enough. But unfortunately, with the ongoing nature of this story in particular appearing to continue still, with a proverbial kiss at year's end, and I'm guessing much more information on the way, I will have to present the red pill to you in a part 2. Because of course, I do believe I know more. In fact, what I believe may very well affect the entirety of this year's content as far as the narrative is concerned. In ending the video here, I can keep from spoiling some very controversial takes I feel particularly confident in, and you'll definitely be surprised for what is most assuredly going to be a wild ride for the Drifter, all year long, no pun intended. But what I believe is more suited to a theory video, with major spoilers that you just can't unsee or hear once I've presented them. In truth, what I'm proposing may not even in fact be correct in the end, but there are just too many similarities, too many patterns for me to not at least show you what I truly believe at this point. So in part 2, you take the red pill, you head back into Wonderland, and I'll show you just how deep I believe the llama or rabbit hole goes. But the choice is, of course, yours. And in that, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk at you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.